It's my honor to have the opportunity to introduce Dr. Wensler Nosey of Apache Stronghold, who is here to talk with us about the struggle to protect Oak Flat. And I will let Dr. Nosey introduce himself, and he has a message to share with you. You may have been able to join us for the session that he had online yesterday. And if so, you know that he has a fascinating story to tell. And there's much more that he can share with us. So I'm excited to have him here and to turn the microphone over to Dr. Nosey.
First of all, yeah, I know it's been a long day, so we'll get through this. I just want to say appreciate to the last presentation that was given. It's really good to hear from all those different angles that you normally don't hear. And I say that because of my long road of where I'm here today, or what got me here today, is really knowing the impact, the history, where everything started from, and why did it start that way. And the reason why I said is because I grew up on the San Carlos Apache Reservation. And what a lot of people don't know that I find when I travel the state of Arizona or anywhere else is that for the Apache people, we have 15 different bands of Apaches. And so San Carlos is really unique because we have all this diverse, and we know each other from the way we speak our Apache language with our dialects. We know where we came from. And growing up, my mother, Elvira, so I'm born in 1959, and my mother is born in the early 1920s, and her parents are in the 1800s. So her parents, my dad as well, were walked in as prisoners of war. And my grandparents were a child. And then my mother was born before San Carlos became a reservation. So I'm firstborn reservation. And that's how close it is for us. Very close. And what I tell people is that we are old and we're new, meaning that we are new to this new way that we all live in at this moment. But we're still old in our old ways. So in our old ways is our religion, is what we hold really tight to. Because we were told that at the very end, when this comes full circle, our religion will be under attack. And this is what a lot of the old people said a long time ago. And the reason why they were saying that was there were so many promises that were made to our people. And they took everything. Every place that we were at, they took the land, they conquered the land. And what really amazes me about our people is the fact that if I was to just close the doors and kept you in here and say, you can't go no more, can't go anywhere, you can kind of imagine what it done to the females and the males and how this unknown behavior began, meaning an unhealthy one, because your whole world has come to a stop. And when I go back to my family, they talk about these first people who came. There was really no, in Apache, there's really no words that defines us different or really racist. They would say that probably is your relative, because that was the only word we would have, because you look no different than me. 5 fingers, 5 toes, no different. And so the hospitality was given, and we didn't know what they were here for. So I grew up with my grandmother and my mother mostly crying. And they would say, what did we do? What did we do to them? So you got to remember from my grandmother, she's incarcerated and could never leave anymore. And then my mother, growing up under her mother, didn't know what she was about. What is her purpose? What is her reason? Then when it came to the men, it was really devastating because in the federal policy, a lot of our leaders were killed. A lot of our leaders were exiled out of here because the fathers had the potential to educate their children. So they were deemed as the first enemy to remove them as quick as possible so that the children won't know who they are. So the assimilation process started to assimilate us into what they were. So I go around the country and I tell the people, don't get upset with me with the things I say, because we have the right to evaluate you. We have the right to evaluate this country because we're forced to live into the system. And the system breaks away the family unity. It breaks away the connection of what love really is. But most importantly, it disconnects you from Nagosan, the Mother Earth. So when I talk to people or people come and sit with me at Oak Flats or they spend time with me, what a lot of people tell me is that they're disconnected to the earth. How do we get reconnected to the earth? Because for us, the Mother Earth, well, we just don't call it mother, because if you look at the definition of what a female does, it gives life. It takes care of life. And that's what the Mother Earth does for all of us. So when a child is born, the parents are ready. We have a itzos feather, eagle feather. And then one's attached to a blue stone and one's attached to a white stone. So what happens is that when a baby is born, well, conceived, the mother is carrying the baby. The mother has a responsibility to take care of the child. Everybody does, the community. But the mother talks to the child. So the child hears all these voices. But now it's time for the child to come to the surface of the earth. So then the umbilical cord is cut. The mother still has her responsibility, but now everybody does. We all have a responsibility. But at that birth, when the child is being born, if it's a female, we give the child, the female girl, a white stone. If it's a boy, we give him the blue stone. And that now is connected to the earth. Those two stones connect the female and the male to the earth, to the mother. Now the teaching begins about how they're connected and how important the mother is so critical to all of us. And this is what our ancient ceremony is all about. It's about the female. It's about the mother. And so once the child is connected to the earth, they know that they have the responsibility to take care of the mother, because the mother is the provider of us all. Because in our belief, the greatest gift that God gave all of us is Mother Earth. Because we can't exist without that. And that's all of our reason of why we are here and what we're supposed to do. So I tell people, I said, I say these things sometimes that, I tell them, please don't get offended. I said, because an evaluation is really important. You have to evaluate where we came from, where we're at, and where we're going to go tomorrow. Now, coming to Oak Flats, you're talking about 17 million gallons of water being used for the next 40 years. Going into the environmental impacts. If you look to the southwest, it's all copper. But this one particular place that the United States government agreed to keep it never touched because of the sacredness of this place has now been taken. So another great promise being destroyed between us and the United States again. But it goes back to the old ones when they were saying that the last battle that they're going to come after is our religion, because our religion ties us to the mother. And it still has everything involved, meaning tools and how you converse with God and how you converse with angels. So I'm 65 now. And I'm really glad that when I was, well, I guess I don't know if I should say glad, but when I grew up with my grandfather, my dad, my uncles, and what they were going through, and then my mother and my grandmothers, what they were talking about. And I come from a family of 7, so I'm the last one. So my mother caught me all the time and said, sit down, I'm going to talk to you. So I got caught all the time. And so I went through listening to their pains. Now, I'm a Chiricahua Apache on my father's side. My mother is Tonto and Yavapai on the other side. So they were both forcibly marched into San Carlos with all the other Apaches that were there already. My particular family on both sides were defending the land. So we never became scouts. We never sided with the United States because they were fighting because this was wrong. But we got the worst punishment of all. So when I was growing up, hearing what was painful for them, and finally becoming to an age of 8 years old, I was in 8th grade, and I gave this speech. And I went over to my mother, of course, after, and I asked her, how did I do? And the way, our people who spoke their language first, their English wasn't great. But she would say to me, "You're sure lying." And I'm looking at her like, what? And she said, "Son, we still have pain in our hearts." She said, "Why do you think I never hug you? Why do you think I never hug anybody?" Because back then we were taken and never to come back. And I used to run back into the reservation, to come back here. Then my daughters, so a family of 7, the 2 oldest ones were my older sisters who were graduated like in 1958, I think, or no, graduated in 59 and one in 63. So they still had the relocation program. And so our children were still being plugged and being moved to the Bay Area in Oakland and San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, and many other places. So our family were taught to not tie to one another because they're going to be gone. So imagine being a mother not being able to have that relationship with her children. But it wasn't until 1968 when my brother Paul graduated from high school when the federal government finally changed the law where now Arizona can go ahead and accept Native students in their colleges. So I remember my brother Paul having 2 parties. One that he graduated, and 2 that he gets to stay home and pick where he can go to school. So I go back to that when I had that discussion with my mother, because what they were teaching us was what our people were trying to define. What happened? What did we do? What did we do to them? And so I remember in the 1970s and around 1984, and bless them, a lot of those elders are gone now. They're no longer here. My mother being one of them. If she was alive today, she would be like 104. But I remember they were just so happy that they defined in their own way what happened. And I just remember it's like they found an answer to a question. And so my mother sat me down and she says, look, listen, look and listen. So the first thing she did was she took me outside and she was, look at all of this. This is life. It's alive. A lot of people are going to say things in this world, but you have to question it. But what you see with your eyes is what we have left, because that's truth. She goes, if a dog is suffering, if a tree's not watered, if it doesn't rain, you see all these things happening. You need to follow that. That's showing you. But somebody could say, oh, don't worry about the dog. He'll eat later. Oh, don't worry, it's going to rain in a month. She goes, that's what they do to us. But when we look and we learn, it's something more important. But she said, the reason why I'm telling you that is because a long time ago, she said there was one drum, one circle, one prayer. And she goes, what I mean by that was our people talked about and knew what was happening on the other side of the world already. And the only reason why they knew it was because this evil had already come here as well. So in our religious doctrine is they talk about that it came here and tried to do the same thing it was doing on the other side of the world. But because the people here in Turtle Island had one drum, one circle, one prayer, meaning that it couldn't break us because we were taking care of the responsibility that God gave us about the earth. So they say that all these people prayed all over this, what is now the United States, that they prayed. Word went out and they prayed. And they say that this evil got hit. So he turned around and looked at us and said, I'll be back. So from that point on, they talk about that evil spirit going back on the other side again. But it brought cautious to the people about our prayers because this evil was so powerful of how it came. So it's like everybody began to keep an eye on when it was going to come back again. But when the first people came across the country, we let down our shields because they were people. They were God's people. And we already knew that there was so many suffering going on the other side of the world that people prayed for a better time, for a better place, for a new beginning, following God's or Jesus' way of teaching. So they came here. And this is what the people thought. That, okay, these are the children that are coming here. But we didn't know what was the intention of the first people who came. It was totally for something else. That's when we began to witness, never before, killing that were taking place, incarcerations that were taking place, removals that were taking place, screaming, yelling, crying, praying. Because we didn't have these weapons that these people had brought. They were just talking in the last session when that was happening in Mexico. What is Mexico today? Our native brothers and sisters were running away from that war coming up. So we were taking them. So our people talk about those chilling days when the Spaniards came into South America and migrated up, and the British or French was in Canada, and then what was coming across this country. So you can kind of imagine this fear our people had. And so they would say, the white people are the worstest thing on earth. Because how could somebody do that? But now let me get you back to between 75 and 84. They were so excited because they let the white people off the hook. What they said, in their funny way of trying to explain it, they were talking about colonization and capitalism. That's what they're bringing to us. Because we began to see in our own system how they began to change us. How the way we worked as a community, the way we worked with caring for each other, and those were a priority, that was beginning to change among our people. So we're getting into this capitalist way of life. So what was really neat to see in 84 was all these old people all excited saying, we have a chance to fix this. We have a chance to fix this. So it takes me back to when I became the chairman of the tribe. So I get a call from Washington, and believe it or not, it was Obama's administration. And I got a call. So I went to Washington. So they took me to the Supreme Court, showed me their judicial system, explained to me how it worked. Then they took me to Congress, showed me how that worked. And then they took me to, what's that building is all in different angles, military building, the Pentagon. So before I know it, I'm on a plane heading home. I'm coming home. I'm like, kind of visit was that? Thought they were going to talk to me about Native issues, programs and, things that they're obligated to. But they showed me their power. And I came home. And again, my mother was still alive. So I went over to see her and I told her, I said, hey, wow, this was a crazy visit. This is what they showed me. And I always remember her voice, she was like, hey, they're still scared of us. She goes, hey, they're still scared of us. She goes, son, they showed you their power. She said, that's that word you guys talk about. I said, capitalism? She goes, yeah, that's their power. That's what they live by. That's what they teach their children to go by. When I look at the schools, it's like I'm giving my kids to the mining. Because as soon as they graduate, they start working for the mines. They start working for corporations that actually works against the earth. She goes, it feels like you give our children to the predators. She goes, then they already start to program their minds. Now, when we get older, we look back and we say, hey, that was wrong. We shouldn't have done that. Now you have an argument with your children. Because as you get older, you get wiser, and you begin to understand. But yet, we're still giving our kids without really educating them what they're going into. So she had that discussion with me, and she says, but like I told you before, she says, not just us Apache people, but all the people, the white people, the black people, the Asian people, all these other people, they went through it before we did. She goes, they put chains on us, imaginary chains. We can feel it. But those white people out there, they live with it for so long, they know how to live with it. But they don't realize they're captured. When I sit there and I see the miners go to work every day, she says, I watch this TV and it talks about Egypt, all these people going to work, slaves, up and down, up and down. She goes, this is what this reminds me of. That's here in America, because it's about money. There's no way you can make it if you don't have within their system. So she's telling me all these things, and I started thinking, whoa, that's a lot. How are we going to fix this? But she gave me an example. She says, it's like walking. You normally walk this trail, but all of a sudden someone says, boo, and you jump and you lose focus. So from us Native people to all the people of the world, we lost focus of who we're supposed to be. So son, she goes, the United States may have shown you all of that, but there's one thing you have. You have one thing that you can give them, and that's in here, your heart. You can be mad, you can be upset, you can hate them. But son, you got to remember, they went through it first. They were colonized first. They were put into this capitalist way. They were. So learn from their mistakes, because I bet you they want to help you. They want to help you. She said, because remember, 90% of us were killed in this country. So to see any Native people, we're really lucky. Because you'd think, for every 100, only 10 live. And that's why when we talk about this COVID, it was scary because we're only 17,000. If anything hits us, we're gone. So she reminded me of how important those things were, about how we all went through it together. So that's what took me on my trip to Europe. That's what took me on my trips to sit up and down the East Coast and the West Coast and learn about the families you come from. Man, there's tragic stories that you guys come from too. When the people were coming in the East Coast were restricted from who they were and were demanded to become Americans. And I said, it's scary because you don't want to live in an illusion, a false foundation. Because when you have to go from this building to maybe a block down the road, you got to go through those homes. If you ask for permission, you'll be granted. People will help you through it. But if you just take over and go through those places and get there, then you're going to be disliked. So those are the examples that we're given. Because if this country was founded the way it should have been founded, we would be a lot better off right now. Because the morals, integrity about Mother Earth should have been included in this so-called place called America. Should have been included. And the reason why I stand so firm behind that is because of what's happening in the Oak Flats. Because it's not an Apache fight. It's not a Native American fight. It's not even a state fight. It's a country and a world fight. This is what we all are involved in. And that's why it's real critical of how, when we walk this land and how we talk to one another, and especially to our children and the ones yet to be born. Because all of us here, we've already lived our life. Our decision should be made for the unborn and the babies. That's where our decision should be. So let me get back to Oak Flats. It's going to desecrate our religion, our home of the gone people, known in English as angels. We still have that. The Bible talks about it, but we still have them. God touched different places of the world and put these angels there. Well, it's going to be desecrated. It's going to be destroyed forever. And what is that going to mean for us of how we tie to the earth and how we tie to the heavens when this place takes that away from those who are born and those yet to be born? Now we're going to have to probably write a book so they can read about it and say that this place was holy. But the question is going to come, well, why is it a big hole now? Who did that? Then you come to the water. 17 million gallons of water that's going to be used daily for 40 years. And yet you hear the state of Arizona arguing about these water issues. And if anything, that could be used for domestic use. But there's another question. Our people talk about these deep water, like your vehicle, your radiator water, how it keeps the engine cool. Well, these deep water keeps the earth's surface cool. And as we deplete them, it no longer becomes cool. You destroy everything that you're able to eat, medicine plants, and another, as I said earlier, a home of angels. So when this land subsides and it drops, 184 degrees is going to rise to the surface. So what the study shows is that 50-mile radius, it's going to get 10 degrees hotter. So I don't know how far you are from here to Oak Flats, but it may not be 10 degrees. It may be 8, 7. That's what we're looking at. That's what your children and your grandchildren are looking at to live in. So getting back to Resolution Copper, Rio Tinto, BHP. Day one, 1999, they were already talking to our leaders here in the state, our Congress people. When they made it known in 2001, they were going after full exemptions from the environmental impact studies. Full exemption. They didn't care to talk to the people of the state of Arizona. They didn't care to talk to the tribes. The only ones they were talking to was our congressional leaders. Just look at how much money they made that were allocated to their fundraising for their office. So in 2002, when it became official, I was on the council and eventually became the chairman. But we educated Congress every year. Every time Resolution Copper went after to be exempt, we educate them. But the best story behind that, we had the U.S. Forest Service behind us, Tonto National Forest, telling them of all what possibilities may happen and reminding Congress that the study was done by Resolution Copper and paid by them. So we fought them all the way until Paul Gosar put it on the floor. So I was in Washington meeting all these congressional leaders, reminding them, pleading with them. So I got a chance to sit there with 3 Republicans telling me that they're going to go against the bill and watch Paul Gosar pull it because he didn't have the votes. So I actually sat there that day and watched Paul Gosar run around like a little chicken without his head, and it got pulled. But the very next move was, here comes John McCain. We didn't know he was behind the scenes. So with John McCain, that's when he put it into the National Defense Bill for a must pass. And that's how they got Oak Flats, by being exempt from all these environmental studies, everything. If you look at what happened prior, there was a meeting in Mesa, there was a meeting in Guadalupe. They had 5 meetings. 99.8% of people were against it. The only ones that supported were contractors. But man, as soon as they made the little comments, they were out the door. But that all didn't matter, because in that bill, John McCain said, no matter what happens with the outcome of the environmental impact, it's going to pass anyway. So that's where we were on that late night bill. So here's Tonto National Forest apologizing to me, saying, got to follow what the bosses want. This is wrong. Even, I don't know if you remember Rick Renzi. Anybody remember him? He was before Flake. Well, I'm sorry. He was before Paul Gosar and Ann Kirkpatrick. But anyway, he got removed because he was trying to sell his land with Resolution Copper. So that was a real big issue that came out in the early 200s. So and even him came to me and said, this is really bad, Wensler. You can fight it and you probably could win it. So believe it or not, that guy gave me a lot of hope, even though he was caught in these wrong transactions that were going on. So anyway, moving forward, the bill passed. So now our tribe, the San Carlos Apache tribe, had a decision to make. And remember, tribes are created by the United States. So when I was a councilman and when I was a chairman, I took my oath. And when I took my oath, I went back and read it. And it made me obligated to the United States regardless. So that's how our oath of office is. That we'll have to abide by the United States and their Constitution. So it was hard for my tribal government to really initiate a good fight because it could hurt our funding. It could hurt their positions because any candidate on the reservation who wants to run against them can put in a petition to say that they're not following their oath of office and be removed. So the United States has their hands on everything. And so, but I told my counsel, just hang with me, because this is wrong. This is wrong. So I retired in 2017, I think. And I gave all that up to fight it as a person, to say what I need to say and not be held by the United States and have a zip on my lips to not say anything. So I left. So the United States was really happy I left, but they didn't know what was in store yet. So I told my counsel, I said, I got to leave. I have to fight for this land. I have to fight for the people because it's bigger than what you think it is. So my counsel made a decision to fight it environmentally. But remember, they're exempt. I just said John McCain exempt them already. So the last thing we had was who we are as a people, our spiritual, our religious ways. That is our court case. And I want to say to those of you in here or that may know, those that became an amicus brief to my case, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me in our court case. But let me explain that. So the Apache Stronghold, made up by medicine people and Christian people on the reservation as well that come see me, understand what's at stake, understands the history. Because remember, in the environmental impact study, it has all our cultural burial grounds, our historical, everything's in there about our religion. So the United States exempt that. So if this court case holds, that means that in every reservation that they have their traditional ceremony, this supersedes that we Native people, the United States does not recognize our religion, even on reservations. That's why so many reservations so many tribes have joined the fight now. Because now, remember, Oak Flat is government land. The San Carlos Apache tribe is government land. So when they make this ruling, it applies to all government land. And that's what's at stake in this bill. But let me come to you, because I know we're probably running out of time. So my mother, we used to just park right outside on the main highway, and my brothers, sisters, we would jump off and we'll go pray, and my mother will do what she needs to do. We'll pick up the acorn, we'll pick up the medicine plants, and then we'll get back into our vehicle and get out quick. Because remember, my mom comes in those days where there were enforcement. And so she lived by that. Anybody who had a military uniform was scary to a lot of our people. So that's how I grew up. And so learning all this stuff, 2.5 years ago, I went to Washington. I gave my letter to the White House, and I gave my letter to all the congressional people. And I told them that I'm vacating the reservation. I'm going home. So you can imagine what they did. They're all like, what? And so I said, remember, government land. Both of them are government land. There are loopholes in a lot of these things. And so I made my way back to Oak Flats, and I've been there for 2.5 years. And it threw everybody off. So they can't touch me. Because if they throw me in jail or anything, it'll again become national news. So they're going to have to learn how to deal with this, because our court case is on our religion, not on the environment, because they're already exempt. If I go that route, we would already be gone, because they already passed a legislative bill already that gives them no wrong. But in the religion, they haven't. They don't know how to deal with that. Okay, so here comes the interesting part. So regardless on the EIS statements that everybody had an opportunity to make, we had about a little over 600 Apaches write their position. Then I was going to turn it in, and I was at Oak Flats. There's a lady that lives in Superior, Arizona. Her father was a preacher in Superior, Arizona. Oak Flat was her background, playground. So when I came up, she came up and started talking to me because she had dreams, she had visions, and she had connections with our gone people. And she knew I was coming. And she predicted a lot of stuff that was going to happen. So I asked her, I said, I said, they removed us from here. I'm coming home now. I said, can you pray for me? Because the angels here know you. Can you let them know that I'm a good person, that I'm here to help, I'm here to fight? So I remember her praying, but what was so great about it was she got to learn these Apache words about who they were and who she was actually talking to. So now we sit down and I say to her, you got to write a statement. You got to write one. Sure, I'll do it. This is sacred. This is holy. This is where I converse with God too. So she writes one. And of course, you have the legality in the front, then all the statements in the back. So we turned it into the United States Forest Service. And I got it back in a week. And I didn't feel good about it, so I went through it. Didn't really find anything missing. Still didn't feel good about it, went through it a second time. Then the third time I thought, well, I didn't go to the statements. I've been reading the federal stuff, the policies. So I went back and I found hers missing. So I looked through the whole thing and I looked through the original package that we made copies with. It's in there. But the one the United States gave back to, it was gone. So I had a meeting with the Tonto National Forest, and of course now they got to talk to me, with their attorneys because we're in this lawsuit. And so anyway, so I sit down with them, and I said, the only reason why I call this meeting, I said, there's a particular statement that's missing in the package we turn into you. And I said, I want to know why is it missing? And he knew. And he says to me, he says, well, Mr. Nosey, he says, she's a white lady. Then I said, I know, but why is it missing? And he repeats again one more time. He says, she's a white lady. I said, okay, I know she's a white lady. I know she's a white, you don't have to keep telling me she's a white lady. I know she's a white lady. But why is her document missing? And that's when they told me, the United States attorney told me that the only one that can claim a religious, spiritual happening here between here and God is Native people. And I said, well, now I'm going to be really dumb. I said, can you, like you're talking to a dumb person, can you say that one more time? Then he gets a little frustrated. He goes, I just told you, you are the only ones that can claim anything. So he's sitting here, I'm sitting here, and I look this way and I go, do the white people know? I said, so that includes black people, white people, Asian people, and everybody else who came to this country. Wow. And they call this place home. I said, no wonder white people can't help Native people. No wonder when I did all this study, I couldn't find anywhere where anybody helped us. You believe that? No Native tribe has ever been helped by nobody. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We could spend all day on that, but the point is I felt hurt for all the white kids and all the black kids and all the Asian people I met and everybody in between. And I sat back and I started thinking about what my mother told me. It's a big fight, son. It's a big fight. And so with so many white people I've met, a lot of them would tell me, if we could just only follow what Jesus was saying, And then I find people saying to me that in the church in Tucson, and also in North Carolina, saying, we've learned that Native people, oh, he was talking to his congregation. They were talking to their congregation and said, we Christians thought we were closer to Jesus and God than the Indian people. He said, but I'm going to tell you today, they're closer to God than we are. We better start thinking about what we're doing. We better start asking those important questions that we don't tell ourselves. We better start acting like real Christians. You know, on my trip back, I just cried because I thought about what my mother talked about, what she encouraged me, what she said all those times that when I was growing up. So Oak Flats really represents the future of America, because all this ugliness that we have is, like I said in the last session, it came from somewhere. You have to revisit that in order to make change for tomorrow, because that's where your reference is. Politicians like to go to the third and fourth chapter of this country and never go deep, because that's how they get away with so many stuff. They don't want to go to that because it brings conscience. It brings moral decisions that we're supposed to make. And it also talks about creation and the creator of who God is. They don't want to go there, because I go back to my mother again, because she says to me, this is something important you need to understand. People make evil over there, him, her, over there. But she said, son, for some reason, God made evil too. But it was contained. It was contained. So she said, 2 vehicles, one good, one bad. What did you drive today? She says, it's in here. We make evil. Then when we don't say nothing, we're a part of making the evil move. Things are going wrong right now on the other side of the world. But when you see all these people dying, or those who died first and those who are dying right now, it's all from capitalism. It's all from profit. Scared of what you're going to lose. Don't want to share. Man, I don't want to be like that, because we don't live on this earth forever. And I'll leave you with this. I was in Italy, and they brought a cardinal. I didn't know I was supposed to meet the Pope, but they brought a cardinal to debate my religion. He wanted to debate. They told me it was a debate. So he sat across, and he looked pretty fancy, looked pretty good. And anyway, when they translated, and I told them it was my turn, I said, I didn't come here to debate his religion. I said, it's not my place. I don't do that. He can say whatever he wants to say about us, but I said, for us, we don't do that. I said, because I don't want to be judged when I leave this earth. I said, so that will be him. And so he got mad, stormed out. Everybody was upset because they didn't get a show. But it was, the point, I guess, was, again, coming back on that plane, was how much we have to fix. But it could be done. And I was telling my children, a good example, and again, I don't know where everybody stands on your opinions and stuff, but when the former vice president said he wasn't going to support, man, they went all over the country, to everybody. So imagine what we can do. Imagine what the people can do if we say, man, that's enough. And what I find in America is that everybody leaves it up to your congressional people. And people in District 1 wanted me to run for Congress. So we came over here to the Democratic office to kind of fill it out. This is like several years ago. So what they told me was, in District 1, I got to raise $250,000. Bring that money in. Then we'll look at where it comes from. But remember, Mr. Nosey, you can go to all the casinos all over the country and get your money. But if you get the $250,000 in your District 1, then we'll consider supporting you. So what I learned that day was whatever corporations are in District 1 that flips the money for the candidate for $250,000, they're going to support, no matter what. So what I see is that we never get our best leaders leading this country. And when I look at Biden and Trump, because of Oak Flats and all the things I'm dealing with, is that really they're looking at us, but they're looking above us to corporations. They're the ones that are going to put the meat behind the candidate they want to continue to destroy. So Resolution Copper, when they started moving on this, there was no talk of the new, new green energy? No talk. And 75% of the copper is going to China. And they found uranium, so they already had a deal with Iran. But we're sitting there in the reservation and we're like, man, listen to this news. They're getting everybody to hate China, getting everybody to hate Iran, when our own country is giving them the ore from our country. Doesn't make any sense. So I'll leave you with, go with your heart. You know, God gave you something special already when you were born. It gave you that intelligence already with your ears, your eyes, your smell, your words. You have that. Follow that. Because that's what I do in this fight, is that I follow those critical things that will continue sustainability for us all. And I know I'm out of time, so I just want to thank you again for those who did the amicus brief. Thank you so much. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for being there for us. And believe me, right now in this country, what you all have done, or those out there too, it's never been done before, where non-natives are supporting the religious battle for Mother Earth. It will open up a new door of how we need to take care of and how to change the system. But it's got to be following the spiritual road, because that's what we should all be on. Because it's not about us. It's about what God created. And we should be happy that we are who we are, so that we can continue to bring in the birth of every life that Mother Earth gives. So thank you so much, you guys. Thank you.